picture highlights three expeditions I've been involved in over the last 2 years. Gives you a bit of background what goes into actually getting the shot that you see in the magazines and the media throughout the world. The Tsitsa River is in the Transkei and is one of three main tributaries to Mzimbubu, the third largest river system in the country. It was largely unexplored, mainly due to the large waterfall, as well as the steep-sided gorge. We'd experienced difficult entries before and portages, but this was way above anything any of the paddlers had anticipated. Peering over the lip of the falls, there was silence amongst all the paddlers. Silas Kruger, owner of Fluid Kayaks, was keen on capturing the abseil with the paddler on the face. I'd done something similar in the movie The Orange Unplugged, below Krabi's Falls, so I volunteered. How stupid was that? Our kayaks were packed with gear for 7 days, and together with the paddler weighed over 140 kilograms. We only had a figure of 8 on a 9mm static line. I'm sure you climbers are squirming in your chairs. Not far downstream, we were faced with this large 14-meter ledge waterfall. To consider a drop of this height in such a remote area needs belief in your ability, as well as the skill to read the water. I actually landed up behind the curtain here and was stuck in there for 5 minutes, to the dismay of my paddling mates. Looking back upstream, you can see the gradient that's involved in this river, and also the tight, steep-sided gorge. At this point here, it started raining, so we were pretty amped to get on and get to some higher ground. In our haste to get out of the gorge into higher ground, our concentration as well as our kind of energy levels had slacked off a bit. You can see here I'm snagged in the middle of the river, and just after this, Silas Kruger took a pretty serious swim, and we actually lost his boat for about 20 minutes. Now, in places we travel, logistics are not easy. And even when you organize something, it's not guaranteed to arrive. This is actually the White Nile, and as you can see, there's 5 kayaks, 5 kayakers, a driver, and for some absurd reason, he took his co-driver as well. Suicide Gorge is it's in Cape Town. It's a well-known, intimidating extreme kloofing trip, and we decided to open up the avenue and go kayaking. So I've been thinking about this trip for a while, and a friend of mine, Paul Solomon, and myself took a trip last July, and we decided to go and see if it was actually possible to paddle this area. The put-in requires about an 8-kilometer paddle, and kayakers don't really like walking. We're not really hikers, especially when you got all the gear. You got a 40-meter rope, each wearing a harness, you got first aid kit, and you got the photographic equipment as well, just to capture the moments. It wasn't long before all our equipment was being used. We had to get in via a side gorge back into the actual Suicide Gorge. And once in the gorge itself, we were pretty blown away by the gradient. It's beyond anything we've actually attempted and seen before. After numerous 5 sort of to 8 meter drops, we found this 14-meter waterfall. And when it's not clear, of a safe line, we often tend to ghost run a kayak through like this, just to see if there's any hidden rocks and see how the landing goes. As you can see, this landing wasn't very good. Didn't inspire confidence, so Phil took a walk around, and he actually went down and took the picture. Just to give you some insight in running a waterfall, there are a couple of factors you really need to determine. The height, the amount of aeration at the bottom of the falls will determine whether you're going to land flat or whether you're going to land vertical. If there's a lot of volume like this river in the Brunnerveen Falls and the Durang River, you need to land flat to project past the hydraulic. This drop here was the opposite, much more complicated. It had a 6-meter slide, which gave you a lot of speed going into a vertical drop. This made things pretty difficult. You can see in the picture here, I'm struggling to get the nose down. If you land flat on a 14-meter waterfall, you're most certainly going to break your back, and definitely be a little bit shorter. In November 2009, we were invited by the tourism board of the Seletan region in West Sumatra, Indonesia, to come and check out some rivers and see the viability of commercial rafting and kayaking. So we met up with 4 local paddlers who had scouted a few rivers. It was evident from our first warm-up paddle that we were not going to be a hidden tourist in this place. We were the only Westerners we saw in 2.5 weeks, and wherever we went, the traffic stopped. Locals were very accommodating, super inquisitive, and they were always keen to help out wherever we went. Once away from the roads, the jungle on the river was pretty intimidating. It was over the river. It was very hard to scout, so most of our scouting was done on the boats. This makes it quite difficult if you haven't got vision of what's coming up next. We had a few epics with our local paddlers, but luckily nobody, we had 8 left. After a couple of weeks, we decided we needed something a little bit more extra special to go and to go back to South Africa with. So we got up some local woodcutters to cut us a path to one of the rivers. There's leeches, snakes, everything. You think kayaking is dangerous. One of those rainforests is not pretty. After an hour's walk, we found these falls. These are the Tansi Empat Falls. These are the falls that have never been run. In fact, half the world has never even seen this waterfall. The top drop was obviously not viable, so we looked and we cut a path and we looked down at this second waterfall. The entrance wasn't easy, very shallow. And so sitting in the top of my kayak, basically I processed all the consequences and the technicalities. Luckily, all things went well. It just didn't tuck quite as well as I thought I would and landed up with a slightly split lip, but I think that's fair enough after 18 meters. Lastly, while sea kayaking around Crete, I came across this slogan painted on one of the walls. It was obviously painted by hippies visiting the land in the 60s. This slogan is the way I live my life, and I challenge you guys as adventurers in your own right to wake up tomorrow morning and live by this slogan.